Hey, today we're going to be working on this walk-in closet. Hey, today we're going to be working on this walk-in closet. It's about 8 feet by 7 feet. It had some wire shelving in there, but we pulled all that out. I'm going to make some custom wood shelving for it. So basically, you're going to put new shelves in here. I do have to leave room for this door. It's an access panel for water heater, and I have some like my networking in here. So I'll have clothing racks on all 3 sides, some shelving on the bottom. And I'm going to design all that in CAD. We designed it in Fusion 360. The first steps I took was to get rough measurements of the closet so I could recreate those in Fusion. And being a house, nothing's ever perfectly straight or perfectly square. I just wanted to get the basic design in there as close as possible so we could plan out the closet and get the rough measurements for the rough cuts to start the design. I was basically designing this as I went. I knew I wanted those top shelves to come off of that drop-down box, which is a bathroom vent that passes through there. I knew I needed to get around that access panel, and I knew I wanted 3 walls of clothing racks with shelving under them. I also didn't want to waste space in the back corner, so I needed some clever corner shelves that would work out. This was basically just a rough design at this point, but I figured I could make adjustments on the fly from there. I knew what wood I wanted to use. It's the 1x12 white wood. It's pretty cheap, but it still ended up being $800 worth of wood for this closet. And I do like working with it. I've done other projects with it before. I enjoy the natural look. I enjoy that it's real wood. I could have made it more, I guess, perfect if I used like MDF, but I enjoy working with real wood and the look of real wood more. So even though I designed most of this in CAD, I still find it easier to just do a hand drawing sometimes. So all my cuts laid out, and the basic layout on each wall for it. So it's just easier to keep track of this, and it was quicker to draw it out than actually make a full cut sheet. I don't have a dust collection system in my garage, so I just keep most of my tools on rolling tables that I can roll out into the driveway and make my cuts out there. And then it's easy just to air hose everything off to keep it clean. So I've got all my pieces rough cut, and I like them to be a little long just so I can fit everything properly. You can see right here, I've cut it maybe a ½ inch long. I cut all of these vertical boards the exact same length, so it'll be easy. And then I just come in and trim them to fit. So I want this cut to be as accurate as possible right here, so it's a nice blend with the top piece to the bottom of this ledge. So I'm going to toss a level on it here. It's pretty close. And then the easiest thing to do is I'm just going to mark the back of it. Well, that's looking pretty good now. So the next step will be to cut this top piece so it fits. Alright, see how close this is, and we'll work it on down until it fits. It's not very close at all. Now, not to brag, but it only took 3 cuts to get that up there. The wall was tapered a little bit right here. I'm mainly concerned with not having a gap up here. I'm going to mark that off and see if I can taper that a little bit. Alright, I got that taper cut on there. Let's see if we can get this up there. So I'm pretty tight right here, and I've got a little gap back here. And then on the other end, a little gap on the front, and I'm tight on the back. So now I need to maybe taper this one a little bit. I guess nothing is ever quite square. So I'm pretty happy with this initial framing of it. So I've got one section of board in just to space this. So those will be the shelves going up the sides. I have that on both these came out pretty good, gap wise. And then we will get this one cut and fit. Yeah, I think I found a better way to measure this one. It's kind of how I lined up the other ones on the side. So I'm going to put it up there on that end. Push it up here and then just mark where the wall is at. And maybe I won't have to cut it 5 times. So I've got to make 40 of these little support pieces. And since I have to cut a bunch of them, I just put a clamp on here so I can just toss this on here and chop them off quickly. Got a stack of these. These were just cut-offs of some of the other boards that I ran through the table saw. These 40 pieces I just cut are going to be shelving support. So they'll go like this as a support. They won't actually go up here on this top one because they're on top. These will be for the lower shelves. So it has something to reinforce it. And then as far as trim goes, it's set back, and then a long piece will go across the front to trim it out and give it a little decorative step. Now I'd like to be able to disassemble all of this if I need to like replace the floor or whatever. So I'm thinking about fixing these permanently to the sides, and it would have visible screws, but the shelving on top would have a couple screws on each side. And I don't really mind the screws showing too much. I actually kind of like that look on some things. I'm going to go ahead and attach these supports where I know they're going to go along the bottom, and then I'm going to space them out. I mean, I have a good idea where they're going to go, but yeah, I want the cloth bins that slide in, and I want to know that everything's going to fit. But I know the bottom ones, I know where they're going to go. So I'm going to glue these on, and then I'm going to pop a couple, I'm going to pop a clamp on them and pop a couple 18 gauge brad nails in them just to hold them and secure them until the glue dries. Alright, I think that'll do it. I'll just get those other ones on there. Alright, I have all these bottom pieces attached now for the bottom shelving support. I like to put bottom shelves just to keep, it just makes it easier to keep the floor clean. These are just kind of spaced in there. These other sides have that in. Here's my helper. So I can drop these two in. My original measurements on the CAD design actually came out well, so I've gone ahead and spaced where the next ones will go. Same for all the way up the corners. I've also spaced out where the rod will go. This is a temporary trim piece for spacing. They're about 11-inch bends. They fit real well on this. So this shop vac attachment is about the same size as the closet rod, so I used it for a template. And basically, let's see, I think you can see that there. If it's placed right about here, it still clears the wall, and everything can come on and off here easy under the trim. And then the top of the shelf down here will clear everything that's hanging. I've decided just to assemble these extra supports laying down on the floor in here instead of carrying all these boards down to the garage again individually. I've already damaged the wall in the hallway a couple times. Don't tell my wife. In fact, I might have to fabricate some evidence against a defenseless victim. Oh no, what did you do? I need to figure out exactly how I'm going to construct these corner shelves. Say this is the bottom. These will be the pieces that go across. So they're going to be 5/8 from the front, so it'll leave a 5/8 gap or lip right here. And I thought I might have to cut these to match, but I think it'll work out. And I think if I take another one on the back that covers the seam to reinforce that, and it leaves room for support structure in the back, between them, in the corner. I couldn't find a way to securely and accurately clamp it, so I figured just lining everything up and gluing it and putting a lot of weight on it would solve the problem, and it seems to have. The main thing is I want this gap to be close right there. I think I have room to set up 3 of these, and I have plenty of weights to stack on them, and I have about 10 to do, so it'll take a little while to get these done. Alright, these have sat overnight, so let's see what we've got here. Oh, it actually came out really good. Hit that with the sander. I think it'll be great. I didn't mention it before, I put the wax paper down just so I wouldn't accidentally glue the shelves to the table. So all of these corner pieces came out really well. I'm ready to put these front trim pieces on them, and they need to be spaced back about 5/8 of an inch, which I found these aluminum channels in my scrap bin, and they're just perfect so I can line these up and get all of that. I'm just going to clamp and glue these on here. I'm going to go ahead and let it stick over for now, and then I'll just cut this off so it's totally flush and even. And then some of these need a little bit of trimming here because I didn't measure these. I just kind of glued them on there and figured I could cut any of these that stick over too far. So I'm going to use the oscillating tool and just trim these where basically the corner will match up. See, that one just needs a little trimming to get that gap closed up there. For the longer boards, I'm just going to go ahead and leave the trim piece full length and then let it stick over on the other end a little bit, and I'll cut those off even. All of these have been trimmed now, and I just went ahead and plopped them into place. They're just sitting in there. I did cut some supports at the back. So the next step, I'm going to go ahead and line everything up and screw it together, and then I'll mark everything so I know how it goes back together again. So I think I'll start, I'll line everything up, pull it in tight that way, pull it down tight that way, and work my way around, because not everything is perfectly square. And if it sticks out of here, I'll just plane that down and make it even. And then once I'll basically work my way this way, and the same thing, I'll work my way over this way, and then I'll cut those to fit tight there. Same with this one. This one's a little tight to hit it in there with a hammer. Work on the edges towards the front, and then I'll fit these to be tight. When I do screw this together, I'm going to use these Spax MDF screws. They're number 6, 1.5 inch. They use a T15 drive, and I don't know if you can see it here, if it'll focus. They have like a little drill bit on the end, and then the threads are actually serrated. And then under the head of the screw has some little teeth on it for countersinking. Now, I saw that people like to use these on cabinets so you don't have to pre-drill everything, and these don't, they don't split the wood, and you can just run them right on in. They do come with a little T15 bit. I ordered some impact ones though so I don't have to use the adapter. And normally I would use just a regular wood screw, and here you can see the size difference on those. These are a little bit expensive, but if they work out well, I'll be happy with them. So there's a little bit of a gap here hanging over. There's not really a gap. It's just this sticks out a little bit. So I've got some wood chisels. I'm gonna shape this down so it's even. think that is pretty good. I think after hitting it with the sander, it'll be just fine. Everything that's in place has now been pre-fit and has been screwed together. A few spots that didn't line up perfectly, and I basically just worked off a little bit to make sure there wasn't anything sticking out. So all of those came out pretty good. I'm really happy with the gaps. Everything came out pretty square. And so these are all the critical parts. These end pieces, they were screwed in on their ends. And then these shelves, they got screwed down. I think that's the biggest gap out of everything, and it's pretty small. So that worked out. These pieces just sit in there right now. I don't think I'm going to attach them. The weight will hold them. They're just kind of an end support piece. I don't think they'll get knocked out of there. They're kind of actually wedged up in there. So all of these are the critical pieces, and what's left are these cross shelves. So those will now be cut to fit, so they're nice and tight. That way I have minimum gaps everywhere. And then I have these two shelves that need to cut and fit over here too. I'm going to add this kind of trim piece all the way along there. And I think since this is already screwed in and fit, I'm just going to cut a piece until it fits and then clamp it and glue it while it's in place up here. I have all the shelving cut and fit. These top trim / reinforcements are in place. The front ones I just clamped and glued on there. The back ones I glued and then ran some screws down from the top on them. I still need to add the back reinforcements on these longer pieces. These are done here. This rod is just wedged in there right now. I do have it marked where it's going to go. It seems to have plenty of clearance. This is easy to add and remove hangers without it getting stuck. I'm going to drill through the end, put in some of these bushings I made, they're just steel tube, and then run some lag bolts in. So with the center marked on this one, I can basically measure it from the front and the top, and then recreate that all the way around. Get a pilot hole cut first here. And then we'll go through the big hole for the bushing. Pop the bushing in there. That's a lot better. There we go. Got that one done. I should be able to just put this up here. Work that through the bushing. Get it started. And then go to the other one. Get that started. And it's up there. Guess that's stiff enough. This turned out to be not stable enough. So when you slide, and this is hardly any clothes on here at all yet. But it really, like, I don't know if you can see that in the video, but it really wobbles around. I made this piece here. I made another prototype before I didn't like. So this will just fit up here like this, and it'll be a middle support, and then I'll run some screws from the top down into it. I think that ended up pretty good. Yeah, I think that looks good. That should really stiffen it up. And here's the other one done. So basically I just had an end cut off of one of these. I measured down and over ran a hole saw in it. I found a lid off of something that was the right diameter. Made a circle there, and then I just cut out the front and the back, and I ran it out on the bandsaw. And then the inside of that hole just needed to be dremelled out a little bit to make it fit tight on the closet rod. Alright, time to disassemble and then we'll go sand it. Well, that was pretty easy disassembly. I guess I did a pretty good job in that regard. So now it's take them all and sand them and oil them. A lot of people seem to like the round orbital sanders. I like these square ones because I always have sandpaper on hand and it just takes a quarter sheet, so I can just cut it down and it's ready to go. Yeah, I'm not trying to get it perfect. It will never be perfect. And nothing about this wood is perfect. I just want it to be good enough, pretty smooth, and no splinters. And I think that looks pretty good. And not too much wear on that sandpaper, so I got lots of pieces to do. This is the end piece that goes against the wall that the closet rod will go against, so the wall will be over here. I ended up getting some of these T-nuts and this combo lag screw, so this can go into the closet rod. Only needed one of these, but I had to buy 50. Ain't that just the way? So we'll go ahead and make this work. Well, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be covered with the closet rod. So now that can screw in there. Now I can drill into the closet rod, screw that in there, and then I can just spin the whole rod and screw that down. So I like this kind of sander. I can get the corners of that and get specific spots. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to lock these two nuts together so I can screw this in. And basically I want it where I can screw it in and it will stick out that much beyond the end of the dowel rod, so it can go through the end piece and through that T-nut. I'll just tighten these together. That looks pretty good. Then I should be able to just screw this all the way down in there. Looks pretty good. I don't mind if it sticks out just a hair. That T-nut sticks out a hair on the other side. And now that stud's installed. They're all sanded, and I brought them in the unfinished bathroom to stain them. The one that has solvent in it is quite smelly. This is 100% pure, so I don't know. I've never used it before. So basically this is just rub it on or brush it on. And then in an hour, wipe off any excess. Pretty thick stuff. They said you can thin it some with mineral spirits, but then it's basically the watered down version you buy. This stuff actually smells pretty good. I think I can just set it up in the garage and do it that way. I think I'm going to need more than 2 bottles of this though. I better buy a gallon of it. I think that's looking actually pretty good. This may be a slow process because this stuff takes like 12 hours to dry. And it says 2 coats is best, 12 hours between coats and then all these parts. So the more I can do at once, the better. This is right after applying the first coat. It's got a nice sheen to it. So I'll come and wipe this down after an hour. And we'll see what it looks like in the morning. I think these are looking excellent. It didn't really need to be wiped down too much more after the initial coat. You can see some of the other wood It's definitely gives it more of a golden sheen. And the stuff doesn't stink at all, so I'm gonna go and spread out the rest of this in the garage and at least get one coat on one side of it. And I'll go ahead and put a second coat on this one. I'm gonna put the second coat and the other first coats on with a foam brush. If it doesn't work very well, I'll use a bristle brush. Not too worried about these since they go against the wall and they're kind of test pieces, but I'm starting to lose bits of foam. So I'm going to switch to a bristle brush for the rest of it. Okay, I think I got good coverage on that, and it's time to go brush all of the other pieces, at least on one side, and get the first coat going. Kind of a slow process, but it's worth it.
So at this point, I was just reassembling after everything had been coated in the tung oil. It took about a week to coat everything to get 2 coats on both sides.
Screws in for these supports here, and screwing down the tops, and then throwing these screws back in. It has been reassembled, and that went together about as good as I could hope it would, and I am ready for this project to be finished. This is pretty much all assembled now. Actually, it is all assembled now. It's still slightly oily. I think I'll wipe it down again before I put the clothes and cloth bins in here. I just need to finish this out, so I'll put a board across and then a cap piece there. I want to do some baseboard that matches here, and then a threshold under the door and some baseboard here. So that should finish all of that out. I have some hooks to hang like scarves and belts on. And I should probably attach it to the wall up here. Alright, I'm just going to put an L bracket up here to secure this to the top. And I don't actually need to use the stud finder because I can see a screw hole right there. So I know where it's at. This is just one of the leftover 1.5 inch pieces from the front, basically like the support trim pieces that were under the bottom of the shelves. So I'm going to cut the edges at 45 and I'm going to plane it down for the thickness for the threshold. Cut actually came out to a triangle. This one went pretty easily. So I'll get my thickness planer out and I'll run that down until it's where you're not going to trip on it. And I've got my threshold. Now just to sand it and drill some holes in it and put the oil on it. And it's better than anything I could have gone and bought at Lowe's. Alright, here's the threshold. I'm going to use these same screws on it. These spacks. Alright, that is attached. That went down super easy. Those just screwed into a plywood subfloor. Perfect. This little pancake compressor is probably the most used one I have because it's just so easy to snag it and go over a tire or bring it upstairs to do something. And this Hitachi is probably my favorite nail gun. So I'll use those to pop on these 2 baseboards here. And then the closet will be totally done besides putting a couple hooks up.
I really couldn't be happier with how the closet came out, and even more importantly, my wife was happy with it. I don't think there's anything I would have done differently. It all came out even better than I could have hoped. I'm really glad I used the 100% tung oil instead of the diluted ones. It was just really nice not having the fumes, especially working in the house. Those spac screws were really nice to use. I'll definitely be using more of those, especially since I bought 1,000 of them. But I really did like using them, and I'll be using those on more woodworking projects in the future. I was definitely a victim of planning fallacy on this, as the job took quite a bit longer than I'd expected. I did have some delays, and that tung oil took a long time to dry. Usually, whatever time I plan, I just double that and it comes out pretty close. This was probably more like triple that time. Overall, there was nothing really difficult about this. It didn't even really require any specialized tools. It could have been done with much simpler tools than I used. It didn't really require the 3D CAD modeling either. It made it a lot easier to plan it out and get an idea of what I wanted to do to start with. Remember, if I can do it, you can do it, and we'll see you next time.